Ray had led search and rescue teams in the White Mountains for 11 years, and the rule of the job is simple. You keep going until there is nowhere left to look. He'd found people 8 miles from where they vanished. 10. You do not stop while there's still ground to cover. In April 2022, a solo hiker went missing off the Boundary Peak Trail. Male, 34, experienced. He'd signed in at the trailhead at 6:15 in the morning with a day pack, a locator beacon, and a filed trip plan. He'd done the route 6 times before. When he didn't sign out by 6 that evening, the plan triggered, and Ray's team deployed at first light. They pulled his last known position off his phone, about 4 miles in. From there, they ran a standard expanding grid. 1 mile out, 2. At the 3-mile perimeter, Ray radioed for authorization to push into a drainage basin that ran northeast off the search zone. Steep, but accessible. He could see it from the ridgeline. Routine request. He'd made 100 like it. The answer came back in under 5 minutes. Denied. Sector not authorized for civilian search operations. Ray read it twice. Not unsafe conditions. Not weather hold. Not reassess at daylight. Civilian. As if there were a version of that search that wouldn't have been civilian. He keyed the radio and asked for clarification. The reply was instant, like it was already written and waiting. Stand down. Confirmed. Do not enter that sector. He argued. He was standing on a ridge looking at ground where a man might be dying, and he was being told to turn around for a reason nobody would name. He asked who was denying it. He got no name, just the order, again. The hiker was never found. Here's what Ray keeps circling back to. He'd worked that whole range for 11 years. He knew every drainage, every basin, every old logging cut. And he had never once in all that time been told a sector of public forest was off limits to a rescue. Not once. There was no sign out there, no fence, no marker on any map he owned. The line only existed in the answer that came back over the radio. He went looking, later, for what authority had denied that search. He never found one. The paperwork just said the search concluded, and the subject wasn't recovered, like the basin had never come up at all. Ray stepped back from team lead the next year. He said he could handle not finding someone. It's the worst part of the job, but it happens, and you learn to carry it. What he couldn't carry was being ordered to stop looking at a specific patch of ground, and never being told why that patch and not any other. An off-limits sector with no fence, no map marking, no name attached to the order. A hiker still out there. And an 11-year veteran told to turn around for a reason no one would give him. Here's the honest question. If someone had the authority to wall off that basin from a live rescue, they knew it existed and knew to protect it. Which means somebody could have gone in and chose not to send Ray. So, was that line drawn to keep the search out? Or to keep whatever's in that basin from being found by the person looking hardest? Tell me which reading you believe. Nadia had volunteered with a desert search and rescue unit north of Las Vegas for 4 years, and the desert is a different kind of cruel than the mountains. There's no canopy to trap someone, no river to sweep them off. People who vanish in that country usually vanish in a straight line. They walk towards something and keep walking. So you follow the line they were on. In the spring of 2016, they were searching for a hiker who'd gone into the sheep range alone and stopped checking in. Male, 40s, seasoned. He'd told a friend before he left that he'd found something out there on a previous trip. A narrow opening in a canyon wall that he couldn't stop thinking about. He said when he got close to it, his whole body started to vibrate. Not a sound, a feeling, deep in the chest, strong enough that he'd turned around and left the first time. He went back to document it. He didn't come home. Nadia's team worked the public land around his last known position for days. Grid after grid, pushing outward in the direction he'd been traveling. And the direction he'd been traveling pointed at one thing: the boundary of a military range. His last confirmed coordinate put him under 3 miles from that line. They searched right up to it, and then they stopped. Not because the ground got worse, because past the fence they had no jurisdiction and no clearance, and the answer to every request to cross was the same flat no. No exceptions. Not for a missing man. Not for a body. Nadia stood at that fence line and looked at the country on the other side. It looked identical. Same scrub, same rock, same heat shimmer. Nothing marked it as different except a sign and the certainty that if he'd made it another mile, no one would ever be allowed to go get him. He was never found. The opening he'd described, the thing in the canyon wall, was never located by anyone who went looking afterward. If it's real, it sits somewhere near that line, close enough to walk to, far enough that no rescue team would ever be cleared to reach it. Nadia told me the part that stayed with her wasn't the fence. It was standing there doing the math. He'd been walking straight toward the one direction on the entire compass where a search would have to stop. Out of all that open desert, he'd pick the line. She said she's thought about that opening in the canyon wall more times than she'll admit. The way he described it, the vibration in the chest, the pull to go back even though every instinct told him not to, has never sat right with her. And every time she turns it over, she lands in the same place. She's glad she never had to find out whether the search would have stopped at that fence, or whether she'd have wanted it to. A man who felt his whole body vibrate near an opening in the rock, walking straight toward the one boundary a search can't cross. A team stopped cold at a fence in open desert. So, here's what I can't shake. Did the range boundary just happen to sit where he vanished? Bad luck? Wrong direction? Or did whatever he found sit near that line on purpose, in the one place nobody's allowed to search? One of those is a coincidence. The other means the safest place to hide something is behind a line rescuers can't cross. Tell me which one you think it is. The last account isn't about a fence or a sector. It's about a sound. And a rule 3 SAR teams followed without a single one of them being able to tell you who wrote it. That's next. Walter coordinated search and rescue in a remote sector of interior Alaska for most of his career, part of the country people called the Alaskan Triangle, where more people go missing per capita than almost anywhere in the country. He's retired now. He told me this because he believes the pattern is real, and someone outside the field should have it written down. There's a protocol his teams followed in one specific sector that isn't in any manual. It was never printed, never taught in a classroom. It passed from coordinator to coordinator the way real backcountry knowledge does, quietly, person to person, because it mattered. The protocol was this. When a grid search in that sector reaches roughly 3 miles from the last known point, every team member is told to report any unusual sound. Not wildlife, not weather, not aircraft. Something that fits none of those. If nobody reports anything, the search continues. Normal. But if a team member does report a sound, Walter was precise about this, the search ends. Right there. And the note on the report is always the same words. Environmental anomaly. Stand down. He counted 7 times it happened. 7 searches, across 4 years, same sector. Everyone ended at about the 3-mile mark with those same 2 words. No definition anywhere of what an environmental anomaly is. No training that tells a team lead what he's supposed to be listening for. Just 7 searches that stopped when someone heard something. He kept his own private record of them because he thought the pattern deserved a witness. And then he told me the part he'd never put in any report. In 2 of those 7, he was the one who heard it. He couldn't describe it as a voice, or an animal, or a machine. The closest he could get was a frequency, something that arrived, held for a moment, and left, like it had passed through the search area rather than come from any point in it. He said the hair on his arms stood up before his brain even registered a sound. His body knew before he did. And the second time it happened, years after the first, he recognized it instantly, which told him the thing making it hadn't changed at all in between. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came after. The moment the stand-down order landed, he watched his team's faces, and every one of them looked relieved. Not confused, not frustrated that a search was being called with the person still out there. Relieved, like they'd been bracing for that order since the search began, and it had finally come. Walter left coordination not long after the 7th. He said you can spend a whole career learning to keep looking when everything says stop, and then one sound teaches your whole team to be grateful when someone finally tells them they're allowed to. 7 searches, 7 stand-downs, the same 2 words every time, and a room full of trained rescuers who looked relieved to hear them. Here's the real question. Rescuers are wired to hate calling a search while someone's still missing. So what does a sound have to be for the people whose entire identity is not giving up to feel grateful the moment they're ordered to? What were they actually afraid of finding at 3 miles? Tell me what you think was out there. Subscribe to Obscure Nights. 3 teams. 3 lines none of them would cross. Whatever you believe about why those lines exist, these accounts carry 4 lessons that could genuinely change how a search for you would go. Lesson 1. The single most useful thing you can do before any trip is leave a precise last known point with someone. Not, I'm hiking this weekend. A trailhead, a route, and a return time. Every search in these accounts started from a last known position. The tighter that point, the smaller the grid, and the faster a team reaches you. Lesson 2. Carry a personal locator beacon. A beacon turns 100 square miles of wilderness into a single point on a map. In country where searches stall at 3 miles, being findable in the first mile is what saves you. Lesson 3. Understand jurisdiction before you go. If your route runs near a military boundary, a restricted zone, or a closed sector, know it in advance, because a search may legally stop at that edge no matter how badly a team wants to continue. Plan your route to stay well clear of lines a rescue can't cross. Lesson 4. Check in on a schedule, not just at the end. If you'd promised a call at noon and again at dusk, a missed check-in cuts your last known point in half and launches help hours sooner. Time is the one thing a search can never get back. Thank you for trusting Obscure Nights with these accounts. If you have an encounter of your own, our submission email is in the channel bio. We read every single one. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Good night.